Okay, great. So the title of this talk is Functional Programming with Kotlin. I just want to know how many of you know Kotlin beforehand, how many of you have used it on your projects, if it's the case, or if this is the first time you heard about Kotlin, please let us know on the chat. So I'm a software engineer at Pedidos Ya. I've been an Android developer for about 7 years. Before that, I was a full stack developer, mainly developing web applications. My name is Raymond Arteaga, as I told you before. And today we will be covering these four questions. First, what is functional programming? Second, what is a functional programming language? Then, why we can say that Kotlin is a functional programming language, and at the end we will be answering questions or any doubt you may have during the talk. So the first section of this talk is called What is a functional programming? What is it? I'm sure you all have heard about functional programming, but some of you might be asking what it really is. So the answer to what is functional programming will be functional programming is programming with functions. As you can see the meme there, you may think, well, that's mind-blowing. Of course, that functional programming is programming with functions. But we might deep dive on this concept of functional programming and try to discover what it is. To see that, I just want you to see this smart function that we have here. It's called do something. Just give it a couple of seconds and try to figure out what this function specifically does. Can you please, in a matter of seconds, determine what this function does? It will probably take you more than a couple of seconds, right? Now, please try to identify what this other function does. And if at least you have an idea, please raise your hand. Okay, this function obviously is written in a more clear way than the previous one. Even if you don't know what map is, you will probably identify these core parts of this function and will rapidly know what this function does. You will know that this part of the function will filter this element list. This next part will group it using a key or an identifier, and this one will create a map of that elements list. So these both functions does exactly the same thing, but this one is written in a more concise and readable way. Why we say that this is functional programming? Well, if you see here, we are using a function, but all the code is just written there, and when we read it, we need to keep in mind every piece of this code so we know what this function is doing. We need to remember what this variable contains. We need to remember in what part of this cycle we are. We need to remember with our all efforts what this results list is having, if we are adding items or not. So it gets tricky to understand what this function does. So when we read this other function, it's way more clearer for us. Okay, just move it to the side a bit. Can you all see it now? Okay, great. I was not aware that Zoom covered the screen in gray. So great. When we read this function, it's way more easier to us to understand what it does, just because it's written in a more concise and readable way for us. So we are not machines, we are human beings. And when we write code, it's important to keep in mind that other developers like us will be reading our code, not only the machine. So that's why functional programming is a huge asset for us as developers. Functional programming is, as you can see here, hiding the logic that you can see here in this function behind function names that are self-explanatory, like these ones. filter, group by, and map. So the logic is the same, but it's hidden behind these function names that are easily readable by us, and we can know just by reading the function body what it does. So that's why functional programming is good for us. It's just using functions, but in a readable way, cascading the functions so we can keep in our minds in a more easier way what a function does.